Okay, Sydney Harbor, here we are. Harbor Bridge. Quarter of inch shorter than the Brooklyn Bayonne Bridge, but we won't get into that. Sydney Harbor is not just one of the most beautiful harbors in the world. It actually is one of the most practical, one of the deepest, and with most inlets, it allows for an unbelievable amount of growth because ships can get in and out here easy. Despite
a lot of interesting things, being a separate island nation or separate continent nation, it has very strict limits on in importing not only of goods and services, but also of people. So there had been many years some Asian exclusion acts similar to the ones we had in the U.S., but those have all been dropped now. They have a very interesting situation when it comes to the Aboriginals. Until 1967, they didn't even count Aboriginals. Now they're counted and given government welfare checks, essentially. And what a tragedy. I got more to discuss here as we travel around the nation.
You know, the Australians have a big immigration problem here, a lot from Indonesia. But, and in fact, the Prime Minister at the moment is turning boats away against international law. But they do have migrant services here if you do make it to Australia.
Nowadays, they're much more sensitive about the plants they bring in. Sure, they brought in pineapples down south in southern Australia where they grow pineapples. Here they're growing sugarcane. Now they're much more environmentally conscious about what they bring into the nation. In fact, our bags were sniffed by dogs just coming in here, not for drugs, but for food. Bananas, there's an issue with them. Pecans.
You know, you might imagine fishing being a huge part of the economy of Australia. And as you look around, you might even imagine timber being huge. I'm sure those are huge. You might imagine tourism being huge. And yeah, in fact, that is one of the hugest industries in Australia. But the other one that's big, 10% of the GDP, mining. Gold was discovered in the 1860s. Iron, bauxite, lots of those. Most of that, though, is out in the outback. And that's where you got to go for mining.
Okay, class. I know I didn't have to prove this point by going all the way out to the Australian outback, but here we are in the middle of, I don't even know which desert it is because there's so many deserts in North and Western Australia. I don't know the name of this one. But I finally found a gas station. Too embarrassed. Sorry for these bush flies. They apparently only live 5 days at a time. But anyway, I finally found a gas station over there. It's the only one. This territory here, 1,500 square miles is what the local police cover. That's the only gas station around, and they don't list their prices. That's how high they are here in the desert, because they got to get that trucked in. It's a couple thousand kilometers to get here, and they're too embarrassed to put the woman actually said, we don't put the prices on the gas because people will have a heart attack. But of course, when you get there, you don't have any choice. Speaking of choices, there's not a lot of choice when it comes to water in the desert. Now, is there? So, what are you going to do? It's the classic you have to look up in your textbook, who's the first one who talked about the classic water versus diamonds paradox. Here we are in the outback of Australia. Water versus diamonds. Water is typically very cheap and diamonds are very precious. But when you're in the outback where water is not that plentiful, you would much rather a glass of water than a diamond.